Some outboard brands are already gone. They just don't look gone yet. You can still buy them. You can still find them on boats at the ramp. The moment something breaks, the truth shows up. No parts pipeline, no real dealer help, and a repair timeline that eats the entire season. That's the bankruptcy boaters don't see coming. So before 2026 makes this market even harsher, you need to know which outboards look safe today, but become a headache the moment something small goes wrong. There are some manufacturers that quietly stopped investing in support years ago, some that rely on shrinking dealer networks, and others that still run fine, but leave owners stuck when the first real repair comes up. I'll walk through them one by one, starting with the kind of engine that feels like an easy win until it isn't. Number 17, Force 122, Stroke. There is an emotional pull to simplicity that never really fades. Mechanical controls, familiar sounds, and a sense that nothing complicated is hiding beneath the surface all create confidence. For many buyers, that confidence feels earned rather than assumed. Early ownership often reinforces that belief. Starting behavior feels predictable, idle sounds steady. Power delivery is direct enough to feel honest. Nothing about the experience suggests urgency or fragility. What slowly changes is not the way it runs, but the environment around it. Electrical systems age unevenly. Cooling passages narrow just enough to matter. Ignition components depend on parts that are no longer common in regular circulation. These shifts remain invisible until the first meaningful repair becomes necessary. When that moment arrives, the path forward stretches. Parts sourcing becomes a question instead of a process. Shops hesitate, not because the engine is unfamiliar, but because certainty is gone. Each delay subtly redefines ownership. At some point, reliability becomes something the owner manages rather than expects. You might assume that uncertainty only surrounds obscure or forgotten platforms, but sometimes familiarity itself creates hesitation when clarity begins to fade. Number 16. Chrysler 142, Stroke. Mass carries meaning in boating. The weight of this platform conveys durability, and for years that impression held true. Owners trusted these engines because they felt substantial, deliberate, and resistant to abuse. On the water, that confidence often still feels justified. Throttle response remains composed. Load handling feels predictable. Nothing about performance immediately suggests decline. The shift happens quietly. Fuel delivery behaves differently depending on temperature. Cooling efficiency drops only under sustained demand. Electrical components react subtly to heat, rather than failing outright. Each issue alone feels manageable. Together, they introduce hesitation. Repairs rely more on sourcing than stocking. Familiar fixes require verification. Shops pause longer before committing timelines. Those pauses accumulate. Now, it doesn't end like that all the time, though. There's a different kind of risk, when performance never raises alarms, but identity does. The next one shows how confusion, not failure, quietly changes ownership. Number 15, Mariner 92, Stroke. Daily operation rarely raises concern. Starting is routine. Performance aligns with expectations. On the surface, nothing feels out of place. The complexity emerges elsewhere. Depending on production year and market, this badge represents different internal architectures and parts families. That distinction matters the moment service is required. When technicians cannot immediately identify what they are working on, diagnosis slows. Parts matching becomes cautious. Owners often find themselves answering questions before repairs even begin. That role reversal subtly shifts responsibility. Even successful repairs leave an imprint. Confidence erodes not because something went wrong, but because the process felt uncertain. In busy service environments, uncertainty moves engines down the priority list. Once hesitation enters the equation, it rarely stays isolated. And then there are platforms where hesitation does not come from identity, but from technology that arrived before the ecosystem was ready. Number 14, Johnson 150. Fished direct injection. The on-water experience can feel surprisingly modern. Throttle input produces immediate response. Fuel efficiency stands out compared to traditional designs from the same era. For many owners, the performance creates loyalty. The complexity that enables that performance stays hidden until balance shifts. Direct injection relies on precise coordination between sensors, fuel pressure, and timing. Small deviations can create symptoms that appear unrelated. Troubleshooting requires familiarity that fewer technicians maintain as time passes. Diagnostics become slower. Assumptions replace certainty. Each visit to the shop introduces more questions than answers. Owners often go long stretches without issue, which makes the first disruption feel abrupt rather than gradual. The engine itself does not announce decline. Support simply feels less predictable, and unpredictability is rarely something buyers price generously. But what happens when nothing about an engine feels strange? Accept how hard it is to get answers. Number 13. Nissan 54 Stroke. These engines earned their reputation through consistency rather than spectacle. Quiet operation, steady efficiency, and predictable behavior defined ownership for many years. It usually starts with a listing that feels safe. Clean cowling, good compression story. Seller swears it never missed a beat. You tell yourself, this is the kind of motor that lives forever if it's maintained. Then, you do the one thing most buyers forget to do. You call a shop and ask, can you still support it? That's where the truth can get weird. Nissan Marine branded outboards often share DNA with other mainstream platforms, but the problem is not whether parts exist somewhere on Earth. The problem is whether your exact variant is easy to identify, easy to cross-reference, and easy to service without guessing. If the technician has to squint at the tag, search forums, and double-check which family your engine belongs to, the job slows down before it even begins. Owners feel this most with the small, annoying stuff. A sensor that fails, a fuel system component that needs the exact match, a trim or electrical issue that's simple once you have the right diagram. Without quick certainty, simple fix becomes we'll see, and resale follows the same logic. Buyers discount confusion. They pay more for engines that a shop can support without a research session. It's easy to assume the risky engines are the strange ones, but what about a motor that feels like pure muscle-proven, loud, and respected yet still ends up in a support gray zone as the world moves on? That's where the next one gets uncomfortable. Before we keep going, if you want more of this kind of ownership reality, content-less brochure talk, more what actually happens after the sale, tap like and subscribe. It helps keep these long, detailed breakdowns coming. And let me ask you something. What's the one engine you thought was safe until the first problem hit? Not the horror story, just the moment you realize support was thinner than you expected. Comment the model and where you're located, because the same outboard can be easy in one region and a nightmare in another. Number 12. Suzuki DT 225 two-stroke. There's a reason people still chase these. The reputation is real. Strong top end, hard pull. The kind of power that makes a heavy hull feel lighter than it should. When you ride in a boat that's dialed in with an older high-output two-stroke, you understand the loyalty instantly, but loyalty doesn't stop the clock. The risk here isn't that the engine is inherently weak. The risk is that time changes the ecosystem around it. Parts availability becomes less universal. Shop familiarity becomes less automatic. Even if components still exist, fewer technicians are building new experience on these platforms. That matters, because the failures that show up now aren't the easy failures from years ago. They're age failures, wiring fatigue, corrosion hiding in connectors, seals that don't tolerate heat cycles like they used to, fuel delivery that becomes pickier with modern gasoline blends. And then there's the bigger shadow hanging over older two-strokes, pressure from emissions rules and changing market expectations. You might still run one happily, but service decisions become selective. Some shops will take the work, some will push it back, some will avoid the liability. Owners can keep them alive. But the question becomes, will the world around that motor keep making it easy? And if that question makes you uneasy, the next one adds a technology twist that can feel brilliant right until you need someone local who truly knows it. But cleaner operation doesn't always mean simpler ownership. Number 11, Tohatsu 2 Stroke Direct Injection TLDI 90. This platform once sat in a comfortable middle space. It promised improved efficiency without asking buyers to step into premium pricing or unfamiliar ownership territory. For many, that balance worked. Early ownership often felt rewarding, especially when the engine delivered on its efficiency claims without drawing attention to itself. As time passes, the hidden cost of specialization becomes clearer. Direct injection demands experience that fewer technicians maintain, As training priorities evolve, the engine itself may continue running well, but service outcomes begin to vary more than expected. Parts availability becomes regional rather than predictable, which subtly reshapes ownership. Support starts to feel dependent on geography. In some areas, service remains routine and confident. In others, hesitation appears. Diagnostics slow, repairs stretch. Owners notice that answers are less immediate than they once were. The engine's performance may not change, but perception does. Trust shifts away from the machine and toward the surrounding network. That shift is difficult to reverse once it settles in. And when confidence depends on proximity, certainty becomes fragile. The good thing is that kind of uncertainty feels manageable here. It becomes far more frustrating when simplicity was the entire point to begin with. Number 10. Hangkai 9.9 Portable 2-stroke. Small engines are often bought to remove anxiety, not introduce it. They are meant to be dependable backups, quietly waiting without demanding attention. Lightweight design and accessible pricing reinforce that expectation, especially for owners who want insurance rather than experimentation. Initial impressions usually align with that role. Installation is straightforward. Controls are intuitive. Early use feels uncomplicated, which encourages trust. Nothing suggests that the engine will require extra thought or planning. The shift happens when something basic fails. Owners expect a quick solution. Instead, they may encounter delays that feel out of proportion to the problem. Parts sourcing takes longer. Local familiarity may be limited. What should feel routine begins to feel uncertain. A backup engine that creates delay undermines its purpose. Confidence fades, not because the engine cannot run, but because reassurance disappears when it is needed most. That doubt tends to linger even after the issue is resolved. And doubt grows faster when affordability meets thin support. When value-driven choices encounter structural limits, the experience changes in ways that are hard to ignore. Number 9. Parsun 44 Stroke. At this size, buyers want boring reliability, something that starts, idles, trolls, and comes home. The appeal is obvious. Modern 4-stroke design at a price that feels like you're outsmarting the market. And sometimes, on day one, it really does feel that way. The risk shows up the first time the engine needs anything beyond routine care. On a mainstream 40-horsepower 4-stroke, a shop can usually diagnose quickly, order parts quickly, and move on. On a thinner network, the same issue becomes a chain of delays. A sensor, a fuel system component, an electrical connector, even a trim-related part things that should be simple can take longer than the owner expects, because the pipeline isn't as dense and the owner experience changes subtly. You stop trusting quick fixes. You start carrying extra spares just in case. You start planning trips around whether the engine has been acting perfect lately. None of that is what you wanted from a 40-horsepower class engine. Resale absorbs this immediately. Buyers in the used market don't just ask, "Does it run?" They ask, "Can my local shop support it without drama?" If the answer is unclear, the price drops, even if the engine is clean. That's why this one belongs here, not because every unit fails, but because the ownership risk is tied to a support map that can vary wildly by region. And now, the list takes a different turn, because the next one isn't really about horsepower at all. It's about what happens when the fuel choice changes who will touch your engine. Number 8. Lehr Liquid Propane 15. Alternative fuel introduces a different promise. Cleaner storage, fewer concerns about fuel degradation, and a break from traditional routines appeal to owners looking for convenience without complexity. On paper, the idea feels liberating. For some, ownership reflects that promise. When service familiarity exists and parts are readily available, the experience can feel refreshingly simple. Confidence grows quickly when support responds as expected. The challenge emerges when familiarity is thin. Every issue feels larger when technicians hesitate. The first repair often becomes a defining moment. How quickly answers arrive, how confidently parts are sourced, and how clearly responsibility is handled shape long-term perception. In markets shaped by familiarity and volume, unconventional systems face pressure sooner. The idea itself may be sound, but ideas rely on infrastructure to remain practical. Without that infrastructure, novelty fades faster than expected. Everything feels different when downtime has real consequences, though. Number 7. Cox Commercial Outboard 300 Diesel. This platform is built for work rather than convenience. Diesel power emphasizes efficiency, torque, and endurance, making it attractive for long operating hours and heavy loads. In the right context, the advantages are clear. That specialization also narrows the margin for error. Service requires expertise that not every region maintains. Parts logistics follow a different rhythm than mainstream platforms. Even routine maintenance depends on access to the right knowledge at the right time. Downtime carries real consequences here. When support falters, costs extend beyond the engine itself. Schedules shift, operations adjust. Capability remains strong, but ownership experience becomes defined by the surrounding ecosystem rather than performance alone. Niche platforms tend to feel strain first when service networks prioritize familiarity and efficiency. The more specialized the system, the more visible that strain becomes. And as expectations climb, tolerance for uncertainty shrinks just as quickly. Number 6. Yamaha VMAX 225 two-stroke ski. This engine built its reputation on responsiveness rather than refinement. Throttle input feels immediate, power delivery is aggressive, and the overall character appeals to owners who value engagement over subtlety. Many continue to rely on it with confidence, shaped by years of predictable performance, especially in applications where acceleration matters more than efficiency. What begins to shift is not reliability, but alignment. Regulatory pressure and emissions priorities steadily move industry focus away from high-output two-stroke platforms. Training programs evolve. Inventory strategies change. Support remains present, but it becomes less central, less urgent, and less enthusiastic. Owners often remain satisfied until a major repair introduces delay. That delay reframes expectations. What once felt supported now feels conditional, dependent on location and timing, rather than certainty. Parts are available, but not always quickly. Expertise exists, but not always nearby. Legacy strength still carries weight, but it does not guarantee future convenience. As the market continues to modernize, platforms built for performance rather than compliance begin to feel slightly out of step, and transition platforms feel that shift even more clearly. Number 5. Mercury Optimax 200. This engine occupied a bridge between generations, offering improved efficiency without abandoning the familiar feel of two-stroke performance. For many owners, it represented progress without compromise, combining power with reduced fuel consumption and emissions relative to earlier designs. As the platform ages, that balance becomes more delicate. The systems that made it efficient also introduced complexity. Sensors, electronic controls, and fuel delivery components all play interdependent roles. When everything works, the experience remains smooth. When something drifts, diagnosis becomes critical. In regions with strong representation and experienced technicians, issues often remain manageable. Repairs feel structured. Parts sourcing follows established channels. Elsewhere, uncertainty creeps in. Diagnostic time extends. Costs fluctuate based on accuracy rather than effort. Owners begin to notice that outcomes vary more than expected. Two identical problems can lead to very different timelines depending on support depth. That variability influences resale more than outright reliability. Bridges serve their purpose until conditions change beneath them, and at higher output levels, buyers expect those conditions to remain stable. Number 4. Parsun 115 4-stroke. At this power level, expectations change noticeably. Buyers are no longer experimenting or compromising. They expect reliability that feels settled, predictable, and supported without qualification. Value becomes inseparable from confidence. Day-to-day operation often meets those expectations. Performance feels adequate. Efficiency aligns with modern standards. Nothing immediately suggests fragility. The concern emerges when electronic systems require attention. Diagnosis must be precise, and precision depends on network depth. Thin dealer presence means even minor electronic issues can become disruptive. Waiting replaces certainty. Owners begin monitoring behavior more closely than they intended. That watchfulness influences perception. Buyers hesitate earlier. Questions appear sooner in resale discussions. The engine may not fail, but confidence softens. At this level, specifications matter less than consistency. Owners are not looking for innovation. They are looking for reassurance that support will respond as expected. That lesson becomes even clearer when propulsion itself changes form. Number 3. Torqeedo Deep Blue 50R Electric Outboard. Silence reshapes the boating experience in ways that are difficult to explain until felt firsthand. Power delivery is smooth, immediate, and calm. Reduced mechanical complexity lowers routine maintenance and creates a sense of modernity that feels distinctly different from internal combustion. The risk does not come from performance, but from dependence. Batteries, controllers, software, and displays operate as a unified system. When everything aligns, ownership feels elegant. When something breaks alignment, resolution depends entirely on authorized support pathways. As electric technology evolves rapidly, earlier systems risk falling behind. Updates prioritize newer platforms. Replacement components follow different life cycles than mechanical parts. Distance from certified service becomes a defining factor. Owners may still enjoy daily operation while quietly questioning long-term certainty. Confidence fades before capability does, which is a subtle but important distinction. Electric propulsion promises simplicity, but that simplicity relies on infrastructure staying close, and exclusivity magnifies that risk even further. The next engine offers something few others can: immense output, standout presence, and a very specific ownership reality once service enters the equation. Number 2. 7. Marine 557 High Performance Offshore Outboard. Prestige defines the initial appeal. Immense power, distinctive appearance, and offshore capability create an ownership experience that feels exceptional. For some, that exclusivity is the point. Service introduces consequence. Specialized components and limited networks shape every repair. Downtime stretches. Costs escalate quickly. Outcomes depend on access rather than effort. Owners understand this entering the relationship, but perception changes when delays appear. Resale reflects that reality. Buyers price in uncertainty, not because the engine lacks capability, but because exposure grows with specialization. The thrill remains. Acceleration still impresses. Presence still turns heads. But ownership carries a different kind of responsibility than mainstream platforms. Performance alone does not guarantee comfort. But now it is time we talk about the number one on our list, which captures the core tension shaping the next few years. It is not just about one platform. It reflects the larger question boaters are facing now. What happens when performance survives, but certainty doesn't? Number 1. Evinrude Technology Generation 2-300. Admiration and hesitation coexist here more than with almost any other modern outboard. On the water, the appeal is easy to understand. Strong torque delivery, efficient fuel use, and crisp throttle response earned this platform a loyal following. Many owners remain genuinely satisfied with daily operation, especially when the engine is running as intended. It feels powerful without being excessive and refined without losing character. The concern does not come from capability, but from continuity. This platform depends on proprietary systems that require brand-specific software, tooling, and hands-on experience. When that support is nearby and responsive, ownership can still feel rewarding and straightforward. When it is not, even routine issues introduce hesitation. A sensor fault, a software update, or a calibration question can suddenly feel larger than it should. Experience varies sharply by location. In regions where knowledgeable technicians remain active, confidence holds. Where that expertise thins, doubt grows quickly. Owners begin planning around who can work on the engine, not when it is convenient. This outboard captures a broader reality shaping the market. Performance alone no longer defines security. Without dependable support behind it, even excellent engineering starts to feel like exposure rather than progress. Choosing an outboard today goes beyond horsepower and fuel numbers. Access, familiarity, and long-term support shape the real ownership experience. None of these engines fail on paper. They struggle when the environment around them changes. As the market tightens, the gap between running and being supported grows wider. If this breakdown helped you think differently, tap like so more boaters see it. And subscribe for the follow-up on platforms that hold value and stay serviceable. And I want to hear from you. What outboard have you owned that became hard to support? And where are you boating? Your answer might help someone else avoid the same mistake.